I feel completely inspired and lifted up. That was really lovely. Good morning, everyone, and grand rising. I'm Dr. Alice Reid, and I'm the spiritual director here, and I'm so happy to be with you today. It rained this morning. Yes, woo! Yeah, I mean, when I woke up and saw the rain, I knew it was going to be a good day. I knew it was going to be a good day. We have a wonderful and amazing day planned for you today. We'll feed you. We want you to hang out. We're going to have this concert. I want to thank Reverend Karen for all the work that she's done to bring the band, to lift them up, to give us this opportunity to really celebrate our music ministry. And you're going to get a real treat with that this afternoon. Whew. So we're in the beginning of the year. Every January, centers like this, actually, we come back to the basics of this philosophy. All year, we're looking at rising higher and growing deeper. We're taking all the good work that we've done over the many months and years, and we're just taking it deeper. And this month, we're stretching in the possibilities. I've been talking about the first 4 chapters of the Science of Mind textbook, and the little podium's a troublemaker. Yeah, I've been talking about those first 4 chapters. They're in the introduction. I have to tell you, I've been doing this, and I've said this all month, I come back to these 4 chapters every year, and every year there's more wisdom for me. There's more revealed. There's more for me to pull out of it, because it really talks about it's kind of what's central to how I live my life according to this philosophy. And so we're gonna talk today about choosing possibility, and so I have a question for you. What have you been paying attention to recently? Where have you been investing your thoughts, your attention in the noosphere? The noosphere is a fun word. It means, and I'll give you the definition that I pulled off the internet. Its definition is a postulated sphere. That means a postulated sphere of a stage of evolutionary development dominated by consciousness, the mind, and interpersonal relationships. So the noosphere is that field of consciousness that we are always interacting with. And we know that consciousness creates. We know that it is the trends of thought that continues to be cultivated in that noosphere that gives us the reality that we experience. And so I ask you again, where have you been putting your attention this week? I know where I've been putting my attention. I've been putting my attention in trying to stay grounded, because there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. We have experienced, and this happens every 4 years, where we have an experience of a transfer of power. And what I want to say to you is that experience of a transfer of power in the U.S. government is actually not the real power that we're talking about today. Because when we look at this philosophy, just like the first week of January when we talked about the thing itself, we talked about real power, the real power that comes from the one infinite reality, the creative life force, that power that pours itself into life. That's what we call first cause. Holmes calls it original cause in the textbook in this chapter. I love that, original cause. But many of you may have come up in a kind of Judo-Christian upbringing, and you've heard original sin. But Holmes talks about first cause. He lifts us up to a higher place to look at where things begin. He helps us to understand that we're working with this thing that makes the grass grow. And so therefore, while we have this experience of a lot of energy that went into this week and in trying to keep up with things and to watching what's going on, and what I know is, as a purple community, some of us are really excited and some of us are really challenged. And so I, again, invite you to think about where you're putting your attention, because if you're putting your attention on the things that are happening in the environment around you, in the situation, in the events and form, you're contributing to what's going on. And I'm not going to say that we're supposed to put our heads in the sand and not watch the news and not pay attention to what's going on. Holmes, in this chapter, in this 4th chapter in the introduction, he gives us a wonderful blueprint for how to navigate times like this. Whether you're thrilled with what's going on or whether you're challenged by what's going on, Holmes has got advice for you in this 4th chapter. And so I'm going to share some of that with you as we look at this idea of choosing possibilities. I just want to make sure that we're grounded in this idea that in the first week we talked about the thing itself. We talked about the divine. We talked about touching grace and how grace moves through things. We talked about the way it works, and the way it works is through what we call spiritual principle or the law. We looked at what it does. We looked at how that movement of grace, that movement of spirit moves through and into form in the 3rd chapter. And I was thinking about that. I was thinking about how the power that we're working for and working with and working as, how that power moves into life. It's a lot like the electrical system in your house. The electricity that goes through the wires that is in your house, it does not pause and say, is this a good house? Is this a bad house? Do I like this house? Do I not like this house? Do I agree with this house's political party? No, it just pours itself through the wires. And then when it's ready to express itself, it doesn't say, which lamp do I want to light? Do I want to do I want to power the stove? No, not at all. It simply does what it does. It simply pours itself through the wires and into whatever we plug into it. And if you don't care for that source of light, that lamp, you can plug something else into that outlet. And that's what we mean when we talk about the possibility of choice. When we talk about this idea this week of how to use this philosophy, we have choice, we have agency in how we're going to work with this power. And it sounds simple. Sure, I'm going to go to Target and get another lamp. Or maybe you're going to go, someplace fancy and get a new lamp. No, it is that simple, but it's not that easy. And it's not that easy because we have invested and cultivated a trend of beliefs and a trend of thoughts that is really informing our experience. And when I look at this 4th chapter in the Science of Mind textbook, there is gold in here. On page 54 and 55, he walks us through how we are touched by grace, how we are each divine incarnations of the one divine power. And he's careful to let us know that there are no exceptions to this, that this power that is moving through life, it moves through each one of us without judgment, without prejudice, without any thought of how it wants to express itself. And so we have this opportunity to really begin to understand that we're working with this great truth this great truth of life that wants to express itself, and it needs its direction from us. It needs its direction from our mind. It needs its direction from the thoughts and the beliefs that we cultivate. I like that for those of you that prefer a more scientific approach to this process, this creative process, I like to think about the cultivating of our ideas and our beliefs and the things that we embody as neural pathway regeneration. Neural pathway regeneration. Now, you know this on the simplest level. You've all experienced it. You're buying a car. You're doing a little shopping. You decide you want that one, or you decide you want it to be this color. And then you're driving down the road, and you see them everywhere. Right? Right? That is at its most simplistic level how this thing works. It brings our mind to a place of attention once we have made a choice, once we have decided what it is we want to experience. Holmes talks about this idea of coming to that place of, I guess the best way I could describe it, on page 54 and 55, he shares with us the blueprint for how to use our minds. He doesn't tell us what to think. He doesn't tell us how to vote. He doesn't tell us what we should value. He simply reminds us on these 2 pages about how to connect with God, how to recognize that deep connection that we have, how to step into a greater realization of God expressing in our lives. And then he offers this wonderful advice, and he says, sorry about that. He says that the image, he talks about that when we have doubts, when we're experiencing limitations. He says the person who is using this science states that there's a law of liberty that is flowing through them and into their affairs, but the image of his limitation persists. Here is a definite contradiction of his statement of freedom. And right here, he must stop and declare that these images of limitation are neither person, place, nor thing, that they have no power, personality, nor presence, and no real law to support them. So he gives us this wonderful landscape of using what we call affirmative prayer, but he brings into it what we call denial. It's a little teaching here this morning. And what we do with this idea of denial is we're not, see now, when I use the term denial, I bet you're thinking we pretend it's not happening. And I'm not suggesting that. What I'm suggesting is looking at where you're triggered, where your doubts and your fears have got you, and recognizing that, and then extracting your power from that doubt or limitation and reinvesting it in a greater truth. Does that make sense? Yeah. Easy peasy? Nope. I don't know about that. I'm still working on it. I have to work on it regularly. So Holmes states, this does not mean that we should refuse to hold conversations with people for fear they will neutralize the position which we have taken in our mind, but that we should refuse mentally to accept the false position, and then we can talk to anyone and not be disturbed. I mean, if I knew what I knew, that I know what I know, if I'm so clear that I'm embodying the values and the ideas that I hold true to my being, then it doesn't matter what you say or do. It can't change that fact. I mean, and again, a simplistic example, if I walked up to Pat and said, your hair's green, do you think she'd have a hissy fit? Would she argue with me? Would she give me, would she begin to defend that her hair's not green? No. She'd just look at me like I was nuts. Yeah. So in this chapter, Holmes is telling us that it's important for us to embody what it is that we believe and value. And it's important for us to double down on that. And we double down on that through our spiritual practice and meditation. We come back to it over and over again. I am having a similar experience, I think, to a lot of people, where there's a lot of noise. And there's, I could easily rattle off 10 reasons why I should be afraid, why you should be afraid, why we should be afraid. But I know that this is secondary causation that we're dealing with. I know that this is not first cause that we're dealing with. I know that there is a power and a presence that will use whatever it has, whatever it needs to, whatever condition, to tease out a greater good. And so my work has been to watch where I put my energy. My work is to pay attention to what I'm reading and what I'm listening to not hide in the, hide out, but to actually look at what's going on in my world and look where I'm investing my power. Because this power that we have been given, this power of possibility and this choice that we've been given is a beautiful gift. And we know, if you've been a practitioner of this philosophy for any time, you know that when we begin to embody an idea, it must present itself in our experience. It absolutely must present itself in our experience. Holmes goes on to write, should we refuse to look at sickness, poverty, and unhappiness? This is not what we're discussing. We will not refuse to help the helpless or lift up the fallen, but we will refuse to wallow in the mud because of our sympathies. So I will say that compassion is the energy that I'm working with. And I'm doing my spiritual practice to know what it is that's mine to do. And sometimes it's just asking questions. Sometimes it's saying, oh no, my hair's not green. Whatever that is, I don't have to worry about that. And doubling down on what it is I want to experience and what I value. And what I value is compassion and love. Those are the things that are most important to me, is revealing love and being a compassionate individual with my fellow human beings. And so I'm not going to be over here fighting with somebody. I'm going to be right here standing in the power of love and compassion. And I'm not going to, I don't need to be, I don't need to fight. Because I know what I know, that there's a love within me that wants to express itself. And when I'm doing my spiritual practice and when I stay grounded in that, Spirit gives me lots of opportunity to love. Gives me lots of opportunity to love. But I have to keep choosing it. That doesn't mean when I see something that I don't agree with, that it doesn't my shoulders go up into my ears and my heart might start to beat a little bit. But it does mean that I'm going to remember that I'm working with a law that is forever empowering me to choose and choose and choose again. Now, the thing to know about this philosophy, we talk a great deal about how we're responsible for everything we create, right? And that could be a little disheartening when we hear that, especially when something's happening in our life that doesn't feel good, doesn't feel like it's going our way. And so as I have been taught, and I continue to remember, is that everything we experience, we've either created, promoted, allowed, or stepped in. And a lot of times I can feel like I've stepped in something, like there's something I didn't have a lot of control over. It comes up, it's in my face, and then I have to turn back and say, okay, what do I want to create, promote, and allow? It's a cycle. It's a cycle. And it happens whether you're aware of it or not. It happens whether you're conscious of it or not. It happens whether you have it, your attention is on it or not. So when you can bring your attention to a place of conscious choice, you can step into greater possibility. Are you tracking with me here? That's a lot of power that we're talking about. Holmes gets whimsical in this chapter when he's talking about these big ideas of having the power of choice and creating our reality. And those of you who know me, when I say page 52, you know what I'm going to read. Holmes says, hence it follows that if we believe that it will not work, it really works by appearing to not work. When we believe that it cannot and will not, then according to the principle, it does not. But when it does not, it still does, only it does according to our belief that it will not. And this is what I mean by you're always working with this power of creation. Even when we make up our mind that this is something is, hoo-hockey and isn't working, it's not working because it is working. Because we've stepped into that place of, without judging it, we've stepped into that place of belief, and we've invested in that trend of belief that is so sometimes very deeply rooted in our thinking. And so the thing to remember, especially in this chapter, is that, and Holmes said, I'm just going to read exactly what Holmes says on page 57. He says, the one who wishes scientifically to work out his problems must daily take the time to meditate and mentally treat the condition. If I were struggling with something right now, if I was really struggling with something right now, I would read chapter 4 a lot. I would remind myself of my point of choice and power, that when I lift up my consciousness out of conditions and remember who I am and who I've come here to be, and remember whose I am, as you so beautifully did in your song, James, then I have the power of possibility through my choice and my intention, the things that I set out before me. So as we are moving through this week, I want you to remember, as Holmes says on page 58, and I'll paraphrase, that we do not put the power in the prayer. We are working with the principles of cause and effect. And what he means by that is the prayer is the mechanism. It is the law. It is the electricity that's running through the wires in your body temple and your consciousness. And so we don't put the power in it. We just give it the direction. What are you paying attention to? Where are you expending your energy right now? Is it in alignment with grace and love and power and beauty and joy? Or are you distracted from that most powerful place of first cause and hanging out with all the stuff that's going on around secondary cause? So our invitation this week is to pay attention and to choose, to be mindful, to decide how you want to align your life with what's going on in the world around you, and how you're going to be a participant with it. Because whether you're conscious of it or not, you are a participant in life. You are contributing to the newest sphere. So the question is, what do you want your contribution to be? and that's how we use it. Thank you very much. Oh, so how about if we just really do some doubling down with alignment, and I'm going to do a spiritual mind treatment. We also call this affirmative prayer. It is the method that we use. It's scientific, it's spiritual, and everything in between. It is the way we shift consciousness, so join me in knowing that there is indeed a beautiful, powerful, creative life force, and all it wants to do is experience itself as each one. It has no other purpose but to express itself. The only way that spirit knows itself is by means of each one of us. And so what I know for us as we come together in this place of grounding and spiritual principle, that we remember our deep connection with first cause, original cause. And we align our minds and our hearts to this place of first cause. It is the place that gives life to what lives in our heart. It is the place that gives life to our values. It is the place that guides and guards and directs us. It is the place that allows us to know what is the next step and the next step and the next step that I must do. And so being grounded in this place of spiritual truth, I know for each one that we notice where we are investing our consciousness, that beautiful gift from the divine. Where are we investing in what it is we want to see in the world? We make a conscious choice. There are no victims, only participants. And so I know for each one that we choose consciously and intentionally where we want to put our energy, how we want God to source through us. And we allow ourselves to embody a place of joyous expectancy that we can be the love we want to see in the world. We can be the compassion we want to see in the world. We can be the wholeness we want to see in the world. We can be the beauty that we want to see in the world. All of it is possible. And so I know for each one that we continue to make the choices that lift not only us up, but lift us all up to a greater day, a day where we only see God everywhere we look. I give great thanks for this. It is with a surrendered heart that I let it go and I let it be, and I know that that power that moves in as and through all life, that thing that makes the grass grow, is the same power that helps me to stay the course, to be intentional, and to be a force for good. And together we say, and so it is.